They say every accident is preventable, but no one expected a coffee spill in the wrong place would ignite the downfall that cost the CEO's son his entire career. I sat there, silent, watching from the shadows, until every piece fell perfectly into place and the counterstrike hit swift, clean, with no way back. Tyler thought he was untouchable, protected by his father's name and corner office. He never saw me coming. He never even knew my name when it was over. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I've spent 12 years building my reputation as one of the most meticulous strategic consultants at Harrington and Associates, Chicago's premier management consulting firm. I don't chase spotlights or corner offices with views of the skyline. I work in the shadows of spreadsheets and market analyses, where real power lives in the details others overlook, in the patterns only trained eyes can see. The mahogany conference table on the 42nd floor still bears the stain. If you know where to look, you can see it a faint ring near the corner where Tyler Harrington first made his mark. Quite literally, on our biggest client engagement. It was a Tuesday morning in October when Tyler walked into our strategic planning session. 20 minutes late, designer suit crisp as fresh money, cologne announcing his arrival before he even crossed the threshold. CEO Marcus Harrington's son had been installed as Director of Strategic Initiatives just 3 weeks prior, a title invented specifically for him, reporting directly to his father with dotted lines to everyone else. "Sorry, traffic was brutal," he said, though we all knew he lived 10 minutes away in a Lincoln Park penthouse. He grabbed the nearest chair, my chair, actually forcing me to relocate to the far end of the table with my stack of original documentation for the Morrison Industries deal. $69 million hung in the balance, 18 months of groundwork, and Tyler treated it like a casual brunch meeting. The coffee came 15 minutes later, Ethiopian single origin, served in pristine white porcelain, the kind of unnecessary luxury Tyler insisted on for every meeting. He gestured wildly as he spoke, interrupting my presentation on supply chain optimization with observations about market vibes and entrepreneurial energy. His cup tilted, tipped, then surrendered to gravity. The coffee spread across the table like an oil spill, dark and destructive, soaking directly into my original charts, the signed stakeholder agreements, the hand-annotated margins where Morrison Industries' CFO had penciled in critical adjustments during our last meeting, months of work, irreplaceable signatures, gone in seconds. "Shit," Tyler muttered, dabbing at his sleeve where a few drops had landed. Then he looked up, not at the destroyed documents, but at me. Why wasn't there a backup set? "This is basic preparation. Sarah, we can't present waterlogged papers to Morrison." The room went silent. 8 senior consultants, 2 junior analysts, and our project coordinator all frozen, waiting to see if someone would state the obvious that Tyler had just destroyed the originals through his own carelessness. But I saw their eyes dart away, toward the windows, the wall, anywhere but the confrontation that wouldn't happen. Tyler was untouchable, wrapped in the armor of his last name. "I'll have new copies printed," I said quietly, though we both knew printed copies wouldn't carry the CEO's original signatures, wouldn't show the evolution of thinking in those marginal notes. "Good. And Sarah." Tyler stood, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. "Let's make sure we're better prepared next time. Morrison expects excellence, not excuses." He left the conference room without helping clean up, without acknowledging the hours of work dissolving into the wood grain. The stain started setting immediately, a permanent reminder of that moment when I decided Tyler Harrington needed to learn what happens when you spill coffee on the wrong person's life work. I spent the rest of that day reconstructing what I could, scanning sodden pages, calling Morrison's team to explain why we needed new signatures. But behind my calm exterior, beneath my professional smile, the blueprint for Tyler's downfall was already taking shape. Every insult, every dismissive gesture, every moment he mistook my silence for submission, he was teaching me exactly how to destroy him. The coffee stain on that mahogany table would outlast his career by years. The weeks following the coffee incident revealed Tyler's true vision for our department, if you could call systematic destruction a vision. He swept through our carefully crafted processes like a tornado through a library, leaving chaos disguised as innovation in his wake. "Sarah, this deck is 48 slides," he announced during our Monday morning review, flipping through my comprehensive analysis of Morrison Industries' supply chain vulnerabilities. "No one has time for a doctoral thesis. Cut it to 12 slides. Max, make it visual. People remember pictures, not numbers." I watched him delete entire sections with casual keystrokes, competitive analysis, risk assessments, implementation timelines, 3 weeks of interviews with Morrison's suppliers, reduced to nothing because Tyler believed in what he called the TED Talk approach. "But the board specifically requested detailed financial projections," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Morrison's CFO wants to see 5-year models with sensitivity analysis." Tyler leaned back in his ergonomic chair, the one that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "That's your problem, Sarah. You're too academic, too in the weeds. Business isn't about spreadsheets anymore, it's about storytelling. Make it sexy. Make it pop. Make it pop." The phrase echoed in my mind as I watched him restructure our entire presentation approach. Data became decorative. Analysis became afterthought. Substance surrendered to style. He assigned me to what he called visual enhancement duty, essentially. I was now responsible for finding stock photos and creating animations while junior analysts with half my experience presented the actual content. "You're brilliant with details," Tyler said, as if this was a compliment rather than a demotion. "I need someone with your eye making sure everything looks perfect. Think of it as artistic direction." The real artistry was in how he managed to frame my expertise as a limitation. In meetings, he'd interrupt my points with phrases like, "Let's not get too technical," or "Sarah tends to overthink things." When Morrison's team asked complex questions, Tyler would deflect with charm and promises, then corner me afterward to provide the actual answers he'd email them later under his own signature. My colleagues knew what was happening. I could see it in Margaret's sympathetic glances when Tyler assigned her to lead the presentation I'd developed. I could hear it in James's careful tone when he'd ask, "Are you okay with the new structure?" They witnessed the systematic dismantling of my role, but what could they do? Tyler wasn't just management, he was dynasty. The breaking point came Thursday afternoon. Tyler called an all-hands meeting to unveil what he called Strategic Initiatives 2.0, his vision for our team's future. The conference room filled with uncomfortable energy as he clicked through slides featuring buzzwords like synergy acceleration and dynamic innovation paradigms. "We're going to revolutionize how Harrington and Associates approaches client engagement," he announced. "Less analysis paralysis, more intuitive strategy, less Excel, more excitement." Then he pulled up the org chart. My name, which had been positioned as Senior Strategic Consultant, now appeared in a new box, Presentation Design Specialist. Not a demotion on paper. Tyler was too smart for that, but everyone understood the message. I'd been neutralized, transformed from strategist to PowerPoint decorator. "Sarah's going to ensure all our client-facing materials are absolutely stunning," Tyler said, gesturing toward me with manufactured enthusiasm. "She has an incredible attention to detail that's perfect for this role." The room was silent. Someone coughed. Papers shuffled. I sat perfectly still, my face revealing nothing while inside. Pieces of my plan clicked into place like chambers in a revolver. "Thank you, Tyler," I said, my voice steady as granite. "I look forward to supporting the team's new direction." He smiled, mistaking my composure for surrender. Fatal error. He'd forgotten that the most dangerous strategist is the one you've convinced you've already beaten. While he basked in his perceived victory, I was already 3 moves ahead, positioning pieces he didn't even know were on the board. That night, I opened my personal laptop and began composing a very different kind of presentation. Not for Tyler, not for Harrington and Associates, but for someone who understood the difference between style and substance, between buzzwords and business. Someone named Elaine Porter. Elaine Porter entered my life 7 years ago at a women's leadership summit in Boston, where she delivered a keynote that stripped business strategy down to its bones. No flourishes, no feel-good platitudes, just surgical precision applied to market dynamics. While other speakers sold inspiration, Elaine sold intelligence. "Never confuse being heard with being understood," she'd said, her steel-gray eyes scanning the audience. "Smart people love to sound smart. Effective people make sure others comprehend exactly what needs to happen and why." I'd approached her afterward, clutching my business card like a lifeline. Instead of the perfunctory handshake I expected, she'd studied me for a long moment, then said, "You're the one who published that supply chain analysis in the quarterly review. Impressive work, especially the part about redundancy vulnerabilities." She'd actually read it, not skimmed, not glanced, read it thoroughly enough to reference specific sections. That conversation stretched into coffee, then dinner, then a mentorship that transcended typical professional boundaries. Elaine didn't just teach me strategy. She taught me patience, the long game, the art of allowing opponents to defeat themselves. Now, as CEO of Morrison Industries, Elaine commanded a business empire worth $3 billion. The $69 million contract with Harrington wasn't even her largest consulting engagement, but I knew she valued it for reasons beyond revenue. She'd mentioned once that she appreciated thoughtful partners who understood that details determine outcomes. Tyler was about to learn what happened when you replaced thoughtful with theatrical. My message to Elaine was brief, sent from my personal email to hers at 11:47 p.m., when I knew she'd be reviewing her next day's agenda with a glass of Malbec. "Elaine, the Morrison engagement presentation has undergone significant structural changes without my input or approval. New strategic direction prioritizes visual impact over analytical rigor. Presenting team lacks familiarity with your operational constraints discussed in our preliminary sessions. Cannot formally intervene due to recent organizational restructuring. Wanted you to be prepared. S." Her response came 3 minutes later. "Understood. I appreciate the heads up. Will adjust my expectations accordingly." 12 words that said everything and nothing. Elaine never wasted syllables, but those who knew her recognized the surgical precision in her language. "Adjust my expectations accordingly" wasn't acknowledgement, it was armament. I deleted both emails immediately, then cleared them from my trash. No trail, no evidence, just two professionals who understood each other perfectly without needing to elaborate. Elaine knew I wouldn't have reached out unless the situation was critical. I knew she wouldn't tolerate having her time wasted with style over substance. The presentation was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. Tyler spent Thursday afternoon practicing his delivery in the mirror-walled conference room, adjusting his posture, perfecting his gestures, rehearsing transitions between slides that communicated nothing but looked like everything. "Sarah, the animation on slide 7 needs more impact," he called out, not looking up from his reflection. "Make the revenue bars grow faster, and add a swoosh sound effect." A swoosh sound effect. For a presentation to a CEO who'd built her empire on lean operations and data-driven decisions. "Of course," I replied, making the changes while mentally calculating how many seconds would pass before Elaine's expression shifted from professional courtesy to Arctic displeasure. That evening, as Tyler left early for drinks with fellow nepotism beneficiaries, I stayed late, ostensibly perfecting animations but actually preparing something else entirely. A single USB drive containing the original presentation, every slide, every analysis, every data point Tyler had deleted in favor of style. I labeled it Backup Original Morrison Strategic Analysis and slipped it into my bag. I wouldn't need to use it. That wasn't the point. The point was being prepared for the moment when Elaine would inevitably ask for substance behind the sizzle, and Tyler would turn to me, expecting me to conjure from memory what he'd carelessly destroyed. The beauty of allowing someone to fail wasn't in pushing them off the cliff, it was in watching them sprint toward the edge, convinced they could fly. Friday morning arrived gray and humid, the Chicago skyline disappearing into low-hanging clouds. Tyler arrived at the office wearing a new suit, navy with subtle pinstripes, paired with a tie that probably cost more than most people's weekly groceries. "Today's the day. Sarah," he announced, as if I might have forgotten. "Morrison's going to be blown away. This presentation is going to set a new standard for how we engage with clients. He was right about one thing: it would definitely set a new standard, just not the kind he imagined. I smiled, straightened his collar with practiced professional distance, and said, "I'm sure Elaine will remember this presentation for a very long time." Tyler beamed, missing the precision of my words entirely. Another fatal error in a growing collection. The Morrison Industries delegation arrived at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. Elaine's signature power move. She entered our boardroom wearing a charcoal suit that whispered rather than shouted authority, followed by her CFO, COO, and head of strategic planning. Each face was carved from stone, revealing nothing. "Ms. Porter, wonderful to see you." Tyler extended his hand with practiced enthusiasm. Elaine shook it briefly, her expression neutral as Swiss territory. "Mr. Harrington, I understand you've restructured the presentation approach." Not a question. A statement that hung in the air like a blade. "Absolutely. We've revolutionized it. You're going to love what we've done with the data visualization." Tyler's confidence was titanium-plated, impervious to subtlety. I stood at the presentation console, fingers poised over the laptop controlling the slides. Tyler had relegated me to slideshow operator, but from this position, I could see everyone's face. More importantly, I could see Elaine's face and the microscopic tightening around her eyes when Tyler used the word revolutionized. "Let's begin," Elaine said, settling into her chair with the controlled grace of a sniper finding position. Tyler launched into his performance with the energy of a motivational speaker. Slide 1 exploded onto the screen, a dynamic word cloud with terms like synergy and innovation spinning in three-dimensional space. "Morrison Industries isn't just a company," Tyler proclaimed. "It's an ecosystem of possibility." Elaine's CFO, Robert Chen, shifted slightly. I caught him glancing at his watch. 3 minutes in. First sign of impatience. Tyler continued, advancing to slide 2, a pie chart that somehow managed to convey zero actual information while utilizing every color in the spectrum. "Your market position isn't just strong, it's transcendent." "Could you define transcendent in this context?" Elaine's voice cut through Tyler's momentum like a scalpel through tissue paper. "It means you're beyond traditional metrics. You're setting the paradigm." "I see. And what specific paradigm are we setting?" Tyler's smile flickered for a microsecond. "The paradigm of excellence." Next slide, Sarah. I clicked forward. An animated graph appeared, bars rising and falling to what Tyler had insisted was inspirational background music. The actual numbers were microscopic, overshadowed by the visual effects. "What's the baseline for these projections?" Robert Chen leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "The baseline is your current performance, optimized for growth potential," Tyler responded, the non-answer wrapped in confidence. "Yes, but what specific numbers are you using Q3 full-year adjusted EBITDA?" "Sarah can provide those details later. Let's focus on the big picture." There it was, the first crack. Tyler deflecting to me for substance he'd stripped away. I remained silent, professionally neutral, letting his dismissal hang in the climate-controlled air. Slide after slide, Tyler painted with broad strokes while Elaine's team asked for fine details. Revenue projections appeared as ascending rockets, but lacked methodology. Market analysis manifested as competing spheres, but ignored actual competitors. Strategic recommendations emerged as flowcharts that flowed nowhere specific. "Mr. Harrington," Elaine interrupted during slide 9, her tone deceptively calm. "In our preliminary discussions, we specifically requested analysis of our supply chain vulnerabilities in Southeast Asia. I don't see that addressed." "We've evolved beyond regional thinking," Tyler announced with misplaced pride. "This presentation takes a holistic, global view." "I see. 2 words, absolute zero temperature. And the risk assessment for our new manufacturing facility. Risk is just opportunity viewed through a negative lens. We prefer to focus on potential." Elaine's head tilted exactly 3 degrees her tell for reaching the limits of patience. I'd seen it twice before, both times immediately preceding someone's professional destruction. "Please continue," she said, voice smooth as black ice. Tyler, oblivious to the permafrost forming around him, advanced through the remaining slides with diminishing enthusiasm. The room's energy had shifted from skeptical to arctic. His gestures became forced, his voice climbing half an octave as he sensed, but couldn't understand the growing disconnect. The final slide appeared, questions in 72-point font over a stock photo of a sunrise. Silence expanded to fill every corner of the room. Elaine's team looked to her, waiting. Tyler stood at the head of the table, sweat beginning to materialize along his hairline despite the aggressive air conditioning. Finally, Elaine spoke. "I have just one question. Mr. Harrington, where is the actual strategic analysis we commissioned? This is it. This is the next evolution of strategic consulting." "No," Elaine stood, gathering her materials with deliberate precision. "This is a TED Talk without substance. My team requires data, not decoration, analysis, not animation." She turned to me, making eye contact for the first time since entering the room. "Ms. Mitchell, I believe you led the original analysis for this engagement." "I contributed to the initial research, yes." "I see." She held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary, communication passing between us in the silence. Then, to Tyler, "We'll be reevaluating our consulting needs. Thank you for your creative approach." The Morrison team filed out with the organized efficiency of pallbearers. Tyler stood frozen at the head of the table, his revolutionary presentation still glowing behind him, that sunrise looking more like a sunset with each passing second. "Sarah," he said, voice hollow, "schedule a follow-up meeting. We can recover from this." But I knew Elaine Porter. There would be no follow-up. The execution had been public, swift, and surgical. The blade had already fallen. Tyler just hadn't felt it yet. The call came at 7:23 p.m. that same evening. I was sitting in my apartment, watching Lake Michigan darken from blue to black, when Elaine's private number appeared on my personal phone. Sarah. No preamble, no pleasantries, pure Elaine. Elaine. That presentation was an insult to everyone's intelligence, including the stock photography models. I said nothing. Sometimes silence is the most eloquent response. "I'm launching a new strategic initiative, internal codename Project Prometheus. We're bringing fire to organizations that have forgotten what real strategy looks like." She paused, letting the metaphor settle. "I need someone who understands the difference between PowerPoint and power, someone who knows that data isn't decoration." That sounds like a substantial undertaking. Director of Strategic Operations, base salary $300,000, performance bonuses up to 50%, full benefits, equity participation after year 1. You build your own team. Report directly to me. The number hung between us like a chandelier crystal clear, impossible to ignore. Triple my current salary, not counting bonuses. But Elaine wasn't buying my Excel skills. She was purchasing my complete transformation, my metamorphosis from Tyler's dismissed subordinate to her strategic architect. "There's one condition," she continued. "I need you operational within 2 weeks. This isn't a position I can leave vacant while you serve out a notice period." 2 weeks is aggressive timing. Aggressive is watching that boy turn strategy into a circus act. I have 3 other consultancies pitching for Morrison's business next week. I want my own team in place before I hear their proposals. I want someone who already knows our operations, our vulnerabilities, our actual needs, not our transcendent paradigm. The mockery in her voice when she quoted Tyler was sharp enough to draw blood. "I also assume," she added, "you know others at Harrington who are similarly underutilized." Margaret Thompson's face flashed in my mind. Brilliant financial modeler reduced to formatting Tyler's meaningless charts. James Winter's supply chain expert, spending his days searching for stock photos. I might know a few people who'd appreciate an environment where substance matters. "Good," Bring them. I'll match or exceed their current compensation. Talent recognizes talent, and Tyler Harrington wouldn't recognize talent if it submitted a 48-slide presentation about itself. Elaine, I need to ask, is this about the presentation, or is this something you've been considering for a while? A pause. I could hear her swirling wine in a glass, the subtle clink of crystal against her wedding ring. Sarah, I've been watching you for 7 years. You could have contacted me any time, leveraged our relationship for advancement. You never did. Even your message this week, you weren't asking for help. You were warning me, professionally, about a